This is Drew Jones of Drewsguitarshop in Seattle, Washington, and this video is obviously not guitar related. This is related to this E tin whistle that I have created from a Generation E flat tin whistle. I've been getting really into this recently, and there were a number of things that bothered me right off the bat about these instruments. One is that they're only available in certain keys, and that really bothered me as a guitar player and as a harmonica player. As a harmonica player, I'm able to go out and get whatever key I want, and I'm able to, use that for whatever song. When it comes to these guys, they're really only available in 6 keys, at least from Generation. And the other thing that bothered me was that they are, generally speaking, kind of riddled with some manufacturing flaws. And so when getting into this, I really wanted to have some decent instruments to play on. And so what I did was I figured out how to basically go in and do the work on the mouthpiece that was necessary to get quality sound out of it. But then I also did some research and a lot of R&D figuring out how to get the keys that I wanted that didn't exist. For example, E, which is a very handy key to have if you're playing with guitarists. So, I figured out how to make basically any of the keys that I needed and also how to get the tone that I wanted. When going through and looking at these mouthpieces, you might notice that there's a lot of flash and other sorts of like weird little plastic manufacturing errors. Flash is that kind of like thin sort of flaky stuff that you see around edges on plastic things, and these things are no exception to having that as part of the problem in kind of cheaply manufactured plastic. And so going in and shaving all of that stuff off really gently with an X-Acto, and then going through and sanding and then polishing all of those surfaces nice and smooth, I think is what really gives me the tone that I want out of these guys, which is nice and smooth. There's also a little bit of reshaping that I do just to get these things to be a bit more reactive. So, when you're doing your overblow, you get a really nice demarcation point between your kind of normal lower breath and your higher breath. Sorry, I'm not completely familiar with the terminology on these yet, so bear with me. I do think that I end up getting a much sweeter tone out of these things than otherwise from the factory. And then the next thing is modifying the whistle itself so that it plays in a different key, which does involve some metal work. And so what I'm doing is I'm kind of removing material, retuning the instrument to a different key, usually going a half step up. So this one coming from an E flat going to an E, not so unreasonable a distance. The problem is keeping the intervals the same, which is when I got modifying these things into different keys, I realized, there's an interval problem in a lot of these that are modified to play in different keys. So let me go ahead and play for you what I have determined to be the best keys for determining that intonation, which are the first, the octave, and then playing the 7th. So hold on one second, let me warm this up. Which incidentally I have also found to be a necessary step in getting the tone that I want. And so you can hear that all those intervals are pretty good. Intonation on these instruments is not generally going to be perfect, and it's really dependent on how much air you're putting into it when you're playing it. So naturally, mileage may vary depending on breath technique. But I have made these things with the capacity of having perfect intonation, at least in terms of those 3 notes. Everything else is going to kind of fall into an equilibrium between. The last thing that I do on these guys is because I have to remove the fipple, I end up reinforcing the end of the fipple with some acetate tape, which what that does is it prevents cracking at the end of the fipple here from moving it around. And I do make these things tunable to an extent. Talk about that in a second. The second piece of acetate tape here that's at the end marks where I have tuned it to. So this is removable, but what I have done is I've gone through and with the whistle nice and warmed up from playing, taken it to a strobe tuner and observed it where it's playing its first, observed it where it's playing its octave, and observed it where it's playing its seventh, and gotten it to the point that it's in tune, and have marked that point here so that the thing plays in tune, which is another issue that these things have coming from the factory, really, is that these things get glued on wherever they get glued on, and whether or not that's in tune, who knows. And then the last bit of acetate tape that I put on here is about where the next hole would be. And the reason that I do that is because there are some kind of funky sort of overtones that you get that aren't necessarily great on some of the notes. And so I find that shutting those down with a little bit of tape does help the tone quite a bit. And between all these modifications, I finally ended up with whistles that I'm happy with. And so that being said, I am throwing a few of these on Reverb and selling them. I do this as sort of a hobby, and so it will take me a little while to get these out once ordered, because I don't have like a bunch of tin whistles just laying around that I can work with. I'm going to have to order them first and then do the modifications and then send them out. But I do want to make these available for people, especially, again, those who are going to be playing with guitarists and people who are going to be playing in maybe some non-Irish traditional keys. Just because, again, it was something that really bothered me when getting into this. I was just like, why can't I get an E? You know, why can't I get a C sharp? You know, there are some keys that are really good to have if playing with other instruments, and you know, having those available to you is really nice. For example, here's another one that I made here. This is a B from a B flat. Let me go ahead and warm this guy up. And let me play this for you. And you can hear that, again, the intervals are good on this, and the tuning is good on it. And you can see the same acetate modifications that I made for this. This is one that a friend of mine recently commissioned from me, and I'm really excited to get it to him when he comes and picks it up, because this is just one of the sweeter sounding whistles that I've ever created. I love Bs. I love the way that these in particular sound when I get them done, because it's just a nice, sweet, honey, low, sort of nice tone. So anyway, again, making these available. The only key that I'm not doing right now on Reverb is going to be A, and that's because it's one of the hardest keys to modify, because I've got to go lower from a B flat, and that entails quite a bit more metalworking, because I have to go in and modify the sizes of the holes as well. But every other key I am making available. So 11 keys, and with the modifications to get the nice sweet tone that I feel like these things should naturally have. Anyway, again, they're up on Reverb. Check the link down in the description, and if you wanted to contact me and do an order, basically what I'm doing right now is I'm putting these up for around $40. It depends on which whistle it is, because some of them cost me more than others. But contact me down there, and we'll get an order made for you and ship it out. This has been Drew Jones of Drew's Guitar Shop in Seattle, Washington. Really appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video. Like, subscribe, check out the other videos if you are into guitar stuff. And thank you for watching.